A kid is dragged out of his house in broad daylight. Rural North Carolina. It's the Klan, a bunch of racist cowards in white hoods. They shove a shotgun right into his mouth. They pull the trigger. Boom! And the law, the police, they didn't do nothing. They probably knew the guys in the hoods who did it. You think the story is about revenge. You think the kid watching this, his cousin, Frank Lucas, will grow up to hunt those specific men down. But you'd be wrong. Frank didn't just get mad. He got smart. He realized that following the rules is a great way to end up dead in a ditch. The law doesn't protect you. Power protects you. This moment didn't just make him a killer. It made him a ghost. Because real gangsters move in silence like lasagna. Okay, to understand how a farm boy became the king of New York, we gotta rewind. After that nightmare in North Carolina, Frank didn't just run. He ran to the only place that mattered, Harlem, New York. That's where he met Bumpy Johnson. Now, back then, if you didn't know who Bumpy was, you didn't know nothing. Bumpy was the godfather of Harlem, the professor. And Frank became his shadow. He drove for him, he collected for him, he watched Bumpy operate like a hawk watching a field mouse. Bumpy treated him like a son, a mentor, molding him and teaching him the code. Keep your mouth shut. Don't talk to cops. Don't flash your cash. Be the guy in the corner who sees everything. For 15 years, Frank soaked it all up. Then, one day, they're in a diner. Bumpy orders a peach cobbler, a whole plate of it. He clutches his chest, and then he dies. Just like that, the king was dead. For most people, the code died with him. But Frank remembered. While the new guys were strutting around in neon pimp suits and jewelry, trying to fill Bumpy's shoes with noise, Frank went the other way. He looked like he was going to file your taxes. He wore cheap suits. He looked like a truck driver or a boring accountant. He walked down the streets and nobody looked twice. He was invisible. He was a nobody. And that's exactly how he became a somebody. When Bumpy dies of a heart attack, the street goes crazy. He got the Italian Mafia selling absolute trash. Total fugazi. They were stepping on the heroin with sugar, quinine, milk powder, selling 10% purity at premium prices. Frank looked at this mess and said, forget about it. This guy does the impossible. It's the middle of the Vietnam War. Frank, he flies to Southeast Asia, alone, into the heart of darkness. He meets the warlords in the Golden Triangle and buys the pure stuff for pennies on the dollar. But how do you move tons of product from a war zone to the US? Frank came up with a plan so dark, even the devil had to come up and take notes. He got an inside man in the army. He built false bottoms into the coffins of dead American soldiers. He packed the blue magic underneath the bodies of fallen heroes. It was ruthless, cold, but genius. Who checks a coffin? Suddenly, blue magic hits New York. The Italians were selling poison. Frank was selling a spaceship ride, 98% pure. He was making $1 million a day. Frank wasn't just rich. He was, I can buy your bank rich. He had apartments in the city, houses in New Jersey, offshore accounts. He had the cash in the walls, in the ceiling tiles, in the dryer vents. But for years, Frank walked a tightrope that would have terrified a normal man. This man had $50 million in liquid cash, but had to drive a beat-up Chevy. This man, he had the power to order a hit on a city block, but let a rude waiter talk down to him because accountants don't start fights. It was a psychological torture test. He saw the Italian dons dining at the best tables at the Copacabana. He saw the new street guys drive Cadillacs with leopard print seats, and he had to sit there, wearing that dusty tan suits, drinking his diner coffee, knowing he could buy and sell them all 10 times over. He walked past the cops who were looking for a kingpin, and they didn't even blink. He was the most powerful man in New York, and nobody knew his name. It was the ultimate discipline. It was a perfect high. But the money, it starts to burn a hole in his pocket. It makes you want to spend, not just your pocket money, your soul. You conquer the world. You want the world to know who you are. You want the world to know that you conquered it. The silence wasn't just safe anymore. It was suffocating. The ghost was tired of being invisible. The ghost wanted to be seen. And eventually, the dam just breaks. It always happens. The ego. It's 1971, fight of the century. Ali versus Frazier. Everybody is there. Frank Sinatra, the vice president, and in walks Frank. But he's not the accountant tonight. He forgot Bumpy's rule. He's wearing a chinchilla fur coat, floor length, costs 100 grand, and a matching 25 grand fur hat. He looked like a neon sign walking on two legs. He sits on the front row, better seats than the Mafia dons. Sitting nearby is Detective Richie Roberts from the FBI, a Boy Scout. Honest as the day is long. He sees this guy looking like a super pimp and asks the question that ends empires. Who the hell is that? And how can he afford that coat? Because of that coat, Richie started digging. He's like a dog with a bone. Frank was smart. He didn't touch the product himself. So Richie had to find a weak link. And he found it in the people Frank trusted most, his family. You see, Frank had this logic. He didn't trust the city guys. He brought his brothers and cousins up from the deep south, the country boys. His reasoning was simple. A stranger will steal from you, but family, blood is thicker than water. It's a nice fairy tale, but in a drug game, when the feds are staring you in the face with a life sentence, blood turns into water real fast. Richie and his team squeezed one of the cousins. They jammed him up tight. Faced with life behind bars, the cousin didn't hesitate. He flipped. He wore a wire. Boom! It was over. They raided Frank's house in New Jersey. It was like a military operation. They tore the whole place down. Frank was looking at 70 years. The king was in chains. Frank Lucas, the man who lived by the code, the man who preached silence, did the most corporate thing possible. He sang. That chinchilla coat didn't just keep him warm. It made him the biggest rat in New York. He didn't just talk. He sang like a canary at Carnegie Hall. He destroyed the entire underworld just to save his own skin. He gave up the Italian Mafia, but he didn't stop there. He gave up the cops, specifically the SIU, Special Investigations Unit. He exposed so much corruption that 75% of the agency got indicted. Frank helped secure over 100 convictions. He burned down the house he helped build. But here's a twist that Hollywood couldn't even make up. Richie Roberts, the honest cop who hunted him down, the guy who put him in cuffs, ended up being the only guy Frank could trust. Richie quit the force after seeing how corrupt it is and became a defense attorney. And who was his first major client? Frank Lucas. Richie saved Frankie from the electric chair. He got Frank's sentence chopped from 70 years to just 5 years. They became best friends. I'm talking holidays, dinners, the works. Richie Roberts, the guy who took down the king of Harlem, actually became the godfather to Frank's son. So remember, the loudest guy in the room is usually the first one to get caught. Seen gets watched, watched gets buried. And sometimes, the guy who puts you in cuffs is the only one who will ever truly have your back. Gangsters never die. They multiply.
Hey, yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey, yeah, ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era.